Thank you. Thank you for being here. My talk is called SCHiM and Making a Game That Stands Out. My name is Ewoud van der Werf, and together with Niels Slijkerman, I worked for 4.5 years on SCHiM, and this year we were finally able to release it. As you can see, this is a screenshot from the credits, and these were all the roles that I had on the project. As a team of 2 people, you wear a lot of different hats on the project. And today I want to talk about 3 key elements that really worked well for SCHiM. First being the style, second the mechanic, and the world. So first of all, the style. For the style of SCHiM, I chose a color palette. I chose a 4-color color palette. Each level of the game has their own color palette that reflects the moods, the time of day, or the setting of that specific level. I have a form of color blindness, so that's why I chose to have only 4 colors visible on each screen. And online, there are a lot of different communities sharing their favorite 4-color palettes. So that's a very useful resource to take inspiration from. Second of all, the outlines. We took a lot of inspiration from the Linkclair style, used in the Tintin comics and other Benelux comics. And our outlines in SCHiM are rendered in post, which means that every line visible on screen has the same thickness, which gives it this sort of 2D or hand-drawn look. And the mechanic. So in SCHiM, you only jump from shadow to shadow. You can lift with moving shadows, and this was really inspired by these sort of childhood imaginary games that we used to have in the jumping from tiles to the lines at a crossing or the specific tiles at a pavement. This is what the game used to look like in the very beginning. This is the first sort of visual of the game. And as you can see, the style and the mechanics already very much defined. And it also uses, in this version, you still use the sort of classical outlines, where you have these sort of inverted hull outlines where as you can see, the outlines are a little bit uneven compared to the outlines rendered in post. I think this is the first really visual or GIF that really explains the game and the sort of environment. The camera is also a bit more zoomed out. It still uses the classical outlines, and this is the first GIF that really took off online. Then the relatability of this mechanic. If we're able to show the game of overall all over the world, and from America we get a lot of responses like, "Oh, this reminds me of the sort of imaginary parkour guy of just on road trips," and our artist on the team also made a little comparison. We also got a lot of media, things that when we were sharing the project, we also discovered a lot of different media which also use this sort of shadow mechanic, as in, for example, Bluey. There's this sort of episode about staying only in the shadows. And this mechanic is really internationally relatable. On the left, we have this sort of shadow tag game, and we get a lot of different interpretations of this game, like, "Oh, it reminds me of this, it reminds me of that." On the right, we got a little this is a competition we had with our Discord community, where we have the outlines of just real-life objects, and we have to trace them. So this person traced it with, I think this is paint, so this is like permanently there. But this was our winner for the contest. And I want to talk about the world of SCHiM. In SCHiM, it's a Dutch name, meaning shadow, spirit, or like a figure that you can only catch like a quick glimpse of. That's why we chose the name. And the Dutch element of the game is very important, because it's also conveyed into the game. We took a lot of local inspiration from our town. I'm from Sneek, so we got the Waterpoort from Sneek is in there, or SCHiM. Up there is, if you can see closely, that's Niels next to SCHiM in Leeuwarden. And I really liked going outside and snapping some pictures, some things that really inspired me. I also used a lot of Google Maps to see so I don't have to go outside too much. You can just the pictures are already there. I could just have it on my second monitor and take some inspirations while I'm modeling in Blender. Here's another one. This is more of the, what do you call them in English? Like these gevels, these gable, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not supposed to say that. But yeah, I took a lot of inspiration from my local town. Also the assets, all the assets in SCHiM are almost uniquely made for this game, also all original models. And like these are also inspired by where I'm from, the little, what do you call them? The poles, I forgot the name, but trash cans, or like, and which is really funny when I show this to other playtesters from my area. They're like, "Oh, is that the trash can from the train station? I recognize that," or like the things like that. Then I'll talk about your boring town is exotic to players abroad. Most of our players aren't Dutch, and so for most players of the game, the environment and world feels pretty exotic, even though it's a very boring town where I'm from in Friesland. And when you create your own boring town in the game, you can get a very accurate or genuine representation from the Netherlands. I think that's pretty great, and then you don't have to do a lot of research to do like, how is this supposed to look? You can just go outside and see how it looks. And players from your country will still find it pretty interesting to see the Dutch in like a pretty big game. We also got a lot of local press. So at Friesland, we have this Omroep Friesland, it's called, and we reached out to them, and they were also really excited to see Frisian cities and Frisian villages represented in the game. We also got to the Volkskrant, which is really big. And I wouldn't say, don't overdo it, I would say. If you implement your own culture or country, there are a lot of cliches you could implement. I think when we showed off the game internationally, it was already, like we got a lot of good responses, like, oh, this feels Dutch, I've been to Amsterdam, this looks a bit like that. But if you show it to like local playtesters, they would often say like, oh, it doesn't feel Dutch enough, because it feels so, they are already so accustomed to this environment. They would like, oh, do you need more windmills, more tulips or whatever? So I wouldn't say not tourist local. Just if international playtesters are already responding really well to it, then I think that's already a good position. And the conclusion, I would say, just make a game that only you could make. And for SCHiM, it's basically just a combination of everything that I'm interested in, or I'm from my culture, or things that like the outlines, the Tintin comics. I have a form of color blindness, so that's why I chose these 4 colors. And so SCHiM is just a game that only we could make. And of course there will be other shadow games, but they won't make it like we did it. Cool.
Thank you so much, Ewoud. It's such a beautiful game. Did you go to any other places in the world for play testing? And did you go there yourself? Did you have like real life responses to the gameplay of people? And what did you learn from that?
Yeah. So we were really lucky to show off the game in different places all over the world. We've been able to show the game off in Japan and in America, and I think our first time we showed it off was in London. And we have this one level that's pretty interesting where you have to jump into the pond. And for Dutch people, that's pretty normal. They would just directly jump in the pond, there are shadows there. But in the UK, they wouldn't do that. They were like, oh, why should I jump into the pond? It doesn't make any sense. But that's why it's also important to show off your game with different audiences abroad.
Cool. I was playing World of Warcraft a while ago, and then I have to scale down every single shadow and whatever there is, so I can still play it on my old Mac. and you're just playing with shadows, which is super interesting. How did you come up with that specific mechanic, and how did you make it like one of the core mechanics, basically?
Because well, I already wanted to do like a game with shadows. So when I was learning this game, for those who didn't know, it actually started out as my exam project, which I was able to do in with a company, SCHiM, where I used to do my internship as well. And they gave me the freedom to just create a game, basically. And I just wanted to do something with shadows, because I was really interested in learning shaders and shading. So I thought this would be a cool angle. And yeah, so I had this idea of just only moving in shadows. And those first few prototypes I showed, I can go back. I guess actually that's let's see. There you go. Yeah, so it's also already pretty defined from the start. But I think what was really interesting later on is that we decided to make it more relatable, like these sort of childhood imagination. Because right now it was very kind of busy, but the final game is a bit more relaxing and a bit more reminiscent of our childhood.
Cool. Are there any questions from the audience? Yes, I will jump to you.
Thank you for the talk, first of all, very interesting. My question is, when did you decide to go commercial with this game? Was it from the start or later on that you were like, oh, I have to include this and this to make it more commercially attractive to people?
Mm-hmm. No, that's a good question. This started out as my exam project again, but the goal was basically to just create a simple, short game in only 3 months. And the goal was to also just put it on itch.io for like very cheap, like $2 or something. That was the goal. And like this, I already started sharing the game on social media. Like this GIF really took off. And I think this was also the GIF that I posted where the first publisher responded to it. So that was like a very clear sign, like, oh, there's the actual real interest in this sort of game.
Yeah, my question is about the publisher. You have an American publisher in IM8-bit, right? How did you find them, and how's it working out for you?
It's working pretty well. We're actually self-published from SCHiM. We're self-publishing. IM8-bit is the physical publisher for the physical merchandise and stuff. So yeah, self-publishing works pretty well in our experience. We were able to do it I think the most important thing for self-publishing is to be consistent. So every week, every Saturday, we would post something on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and that worked really well for us, at least, for this game, because it's very easy to look at it and immediately understand how it works. So this is a game that I was pretty confident in self-publishing, but maybe for a next game, I would maybe reach out to a publisher, but that's for the future.
Thank you. I just want to ask, was the local news coverage something you had to search for, or did they come to you?
For a few, they reached out to us, but later on, just before a few months before the release, we started working with some PR partners, Pirate PR and Hidden Gems. And Hidden Gems, that's a company from the Netherlands, and they really helped us getting all the PR in the Benelux. And what's also really great is they also reached out to like Frisian news sites, like also just random opportunities that would work really well for us.
Yes, thank you for your talk, first of all. And another question kind of about the marketing. Have you run any ads or anything for your game, or is your coverage mostly just from the articles and kind of people finding your stuff on Twitter and seeing it on social media and sharing the clips?
It's mostly social media. We haven't ran any ads or ad campaigns. I think the closest thing would be the press releases with Pirate PR when we have a major press release, when the game released or Steam Next Fest. Only those moments we did a press release, but never really, never ads. No.
Yeah, thank you for your talk. I was actually curious because the first behind the scenes slide you showed doesn't have the character that you jump around with, the SCHiM itself. Can you talk about how that came to be in the design process? Like, what did you take into consideration making that the main character, and what's your design philosophy?
When we started, I wasn't really sure what it should be. I just knew it was like a small thing that should move in shadows, which is not very descriptive, but I had the idea, it was inspired by Splatoon. So I had the idea, oh, maybe it should be like something like a squid or like a fish or like a frog or something. But we gave these ideas to a concept artist, and they just landed on the design for SCHiM, which is just very easy to draw, like a sort of blob with 2 tentacles and 2 eyes, and it works pretty well, surprisingly.
Any more questions? There's still some time. Yep, all the way in the back. You're making me work, Esme.
Hi, really nice talk, really beautiful visuals as well. I have a question about any technical challenges you were facing while making a game around shadows. Like you mentioned before that in some games you have to turn the settings down and then you won't see any shadows to even play it. Like, how did you optimize this?
There were some challenges. I think in this GIF, yeah, you can see the shadow of that building just completely despawning when the camera moves a little bit to the right. So like right there, yeah. So that was one of the challenges where I had to make my own sort of shadow culling method where it hopefully wouldn't cull too early. And I think in this first GIF, okay, no, it isn't in there. But one of the challenges was also if you jump in a shadow, you should get dragged along nicely and intuitively, which wasn't a thing in these first versions. So maybe I was just kind of faking it by just moving the joystick just to get it right. But no, that was definitely one of the challenges, to keep the position, to track the player position relative to the shadow of the object. So when it rotates or moves or scales, or it should also always be at that same position in the shadow.
One more time for one more question. Yes, all the way in the back. I should have stood there. Tim?
Yes, thank you for your talk and the beautiful game. It's a very artistic and also minimalistic style that you have made, almost Dutch design-like. Were you aware of that you are setting like a style which kind of represents Dutch culture and a Dutch design vision?
Not in the beginning. I just thought it was a really interesting style to pursue, and then I sort of discovered more artists like Mobius or Joost Zwarte, which have these Linclair art styles. Yeah, I think that's how I landed on it, I think. Yeah.
Wonderful. One more question from me. What was your most exciting event for you to go to showcase SCHiM?
I think Bit Summit in Kyoto was really cool, because it's all just indie games and other indie game developers and people who are excited about indie games. It wasn't very business related, so not a lot of meetings, just other people passionate about indie games. It was also really interesting to see the Japanese audience play SCHiM and how they would react to it.
Okay, cool. Okay, thank you so much for your wonderful talk and for your questions and answers. Thank you, audience. Give a warm applause.